Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be going over the X-Files Corroded Signet. It is a ring that has been in the game for a little while, and now that we've had time to actually kind of test this ring out, I can tell you a lot more about it than I probably did in my first video. They also have updated the ring with additional stats and changed things around, so we're going to be covering that today. We're going to be talking about X-Files Corroded Signet. Before I do that, though, let me pull in Blight, because we're going to need that for our specific testing here. You know, if you don't want your candy, you don't have to drop it on me, okay? I don't always feed him candy. This is just a special treat for him today. And also to keep him from chewing on my buttons! I need that. Somebody make me a drawing of a chinchilla chewing on buttons, because that's what he's been doing to me lately. He keeps picking up my buttons and trying to chew them off. That's right. I'm telling on you. Button chewer. So X-Files Corroded Signet now has 47 to 65 all stats, and all stats is obviously very amazing because number one, it also helps you activate these glyphs, like for instance things that require dexterity and whatnot, which may have been difficult to activate before, especially when you get deep into the board and you see like 470 willpower and things like that. It definitely helps to have a little bit of all stats to help reach those numbers. Like for instance, Grandfather has 218 all stats, which is pretty amazing, and that obviously helps you hit those benchmarks. As you can see, without my Grandfather on, I'm actually short from being able to hit the Blood Drinker node. So something like the X-Files Corroded Signet would give me the bump that I needed to be able to activate these nodes if I wanted to. On top of this, we also have other effects by the all stats. So, yeah, obviously you have your main stat gives you damage, right? Everybody knows that. Your main stat gives you damage. But strength gives you armor. Intelligence gives you resistances. Willpower gives you increased resource generation, which is really nice. It also gives you increased healing, and it gives you increased overpower damage, which is going to be really effective if you're doing an overpower build. And on top of this, we also get critical strike chance and dodge chance by dexterity. So not only are we getting a little bit of our, obviously our main damage type, but we're also getting a bunch of the other stuff too, which is going to add up in the long run when you have a lot of all stats. On top of this, we also have a pretty nice vulnerable damage bump of 46.5 to 60%, and then we have 72.5 to 95% damage over time, which of course this ring is based around damage over time. The main meat and potatoes of this is the lucky hit. Your damage over time effects have up to a 75% chance to erupt, dealing 55,591 damage, up to 57,356 damage of the same type to the surrounding enemies. The flavor text on this says, skulking in the shadows of the realm of destruction. There's a lot of breaks there. The sacred baron plots the downfall of the mortal who banished him there. Now, we're going to talk about this effect. First, I'm going to show it to you, and then we're going to talk about it. So let me go ahead and put this ring on, and I'm going to show you the effect. So we're just going to cast our blade here, and you notice it's going to get like little damage pumps, all right? And then occasionally, when we have these damage pumps, you're going to see an effect occur, which is kind of like a little explosion. There you go. And that little explosion is the X-Files. So that is the X-Files proccing. Now, one of the things that I've noticed about the X-Files and why the X-Files doesn't proc as often as people would normally think that it should is actually due to the fact of converging damage over times. For some reason or another, like the way that this ring is stated, you would think that it would be proccing a bajillion times. Because, if I'm a Shadow Necromancer, or if I'm a Bleed Barbarian, or if I'm a Poison Rogue, or whatever, or a Poison Druid, or any other damage over time builds, right? And I've got all these damage over time effects going. I've got like... I got like my blind. I've got maybe like some corpse explosion, shadow damage. I got like my minions are doing shadow damage. I've got like a bunch of shadow damage coming from all these different sources, right? And I'm hitting a boss with it. And so I've got like maybe 10 or 12 different shadow damage over times on this target, right? And you would think that it would be a 75% chance to erupt for every single damage over time on the target. But from what I've experienced, it's actually more akin to a combination of all of your damage over time. So you notice that the damage over time is actually kind of just cumulatively adding together in one pot. And so this seems to be the downfall of X-Files, is that the chance to proc is only a 75% chance per tick, and all of the ticks are being added together. So, like, for instance, if I had, let's do a little table napkin math here. If I had 10 effects or 10 damage over times, and they were all ticking on a target, and I had a 75% chance, so minus 25%, then that means that I would have a basically like 7.5 explosions going off like per tick, right? But because all 10 of the explosions are adding together, all 10 of the damage over times are adding together, we're getting one solid tick that's going boop, 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 boop. And so instead of having 7.5 explosions per ticks, I'm getting 0.75 explosions per tick, which is a hell of a lot less. Now, granted, you can get a lot of these when you have multiple targets. So, like, for instance, if I cast Blight multiple times, like, say I get one over here, and one over here, and one over here, and one over here, and one over here, there's a much higher chance that I should see the effects. So, like, let's go ahead and put the ring back on, and we're going to play around with this. So I'm going to run, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So out of 5 casts, I had 4 explosions, which is pretty much in line with the way that the ring is stated. The way that the ring is stated is a 75% chance. I cast 5 abilities. I had 5 ticks going off on 5 targets, and I got about 4 out of 5, which is pretty close to a 75% chance. And we could do that over and over and over again. So let's play around with it again. So let's count them off. 1. That was terrible. Let's try again. So 1, 2, 3. I can only do 3. That was 1. As you can see, there's something functionally wrong with the way that the way the damage over times are calculated, and the way that the damage over times are being calculated is unfortunately interfering with the explosions. Now, in the middle of a big fight, you have tons of monsters, you have tons of bleeds out. There's hundreds of monsters on the battlefield. You're making every single one of them bleed, poison, whatever. Like, you're probably going to see a lot of these explosions, but functionally within like a boss fight, I feel like you should see a hell of a lot more, especially when you're applying multiple bleeds on a target. If they can fix this, I feel like X-Files Corroded Signet will be like one of the best rings out there for DOT builds. But if they can't fix this, it's going to remain kind of a subpar choice depending on what other options might be available. The other thing about this is that it changes damage type depending on the damage type that you use. So if you're bleeding, it's going to be physical. If you're poison and you're dealing poison dodge, then the explosion is going to be a poison explosion. And it's going to scale based off, obviously, your scaling benefits of that particular type. So if you're a poison damage character and you get lots of poison damage scaling, and you have that poison damage pump go off, it's going to scale based off of your poison effects, which is not bad. I also have a Greater Affix version here, which I'd like to show you as well. So this is the Greater Affix version. It is 98 all stats, which is freaking amazing. 9% lucky hit chance. It also has a perfect roll on the vulnerable there as well. And it's 142.5% damage over time. And even the explosion went pretty good on this. It's a very nice X-Files. If I do a damage over time build, I might have to consider using this one in the build, or at least test it out. I'm personally a little disappointed in the way that damage over times combine. I don't particularly like the fact that like every single damage over time just combines into one like conglomerate mass of damage over time. Like I know maybe it's easier for the server not to have like multiple damage over times all ticking independently of each other, and it even maybe looks better like on the screen when you see like all of your damage over times like stacking on a target, and you get to see that big number. But functionally, from a like lucky hit perspective, from obviously the X-Files Corroded Signets, and also even things like I'm not sure if you've guys noticed, but on the sorceress, when the sorceress has like the lucky hit chance on burning to proc a firewall, it does the same thing. Like it doesn't really proc as often because it's not procking based off of all of the fire effects that you currently have active. It's only procking based off of the one conglomerated dot, and each individual tick of the dot has a chance to cause the explosion. And you can see this, like you can actually see this when you're using the ring. So like if you attack with Blight, you'll notice that it's pop, 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 right? This is the dot. Like this is the focus, right? And then when the explosion actually happens, it's going to happen in line with the dots applying. And they're not going to apply independently. So if I have multiple Blights going, they're just all going to sync up in like an exact pulse rate, which is rather unfortunate. And it just means that you just don't really get as many from X-Files Corroded Signet as you would otherwise. This ring, it comes from Andariel and Duriel. So if you are trying to get an X-Files Corroded Signets, you usually just run Andariel and Duriel, either Tormented or the regular version, and you will usually get an X-Files Corroded Signet within not even really that many runs. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this. It's been a couple seasons since it's been in. Do you think that the 75% chance is not enough? Do you think it's adequate? Do you think it's too much? Do you think that they need to do something with how the damage over times calculate, or do you think they need to change the way that this effect works? That'd be interesting to hear what you guys have to say. As always, I do appreciate you guys joining me and Mr. Dusty Bones for another unique item video. Be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And as always, keep watching.